Очи черные, очи жгучие, очи страстные и прекрасные. Как люблю я вас, как боюсь я вас, знать увидел вас я в недобрый час.
Welcome to a world of intrigue and deception, a place spies call the wilderness of mirrors, where nobody is who or what they seem. They were the early, chaotic years of the Cold War. In Australia, a fledgling intelligence organization hunted Soviet spies. ASIO's exploits would send shockwaves across the political landscape. This is the story of ASIO's first master spy, Charles Spry, and his secret war against a cunning enemy. An enemy that appeared to be everywhere, from the highest office in the land to within the spy agency itself.
When you run a security agency, first of all, I wouldn't wish it upon my worst enemy. I can think of the lovely life I would have had in the army if I'd stayed in it, without all these worries and this damned heart condition I've got now.
The Soviet Union today successfully tested its first atomic weapon in Kazakhstan. President Truman said its development was facilitated by espionage and sends a clear message that the communist state is preparing for world domination by any means.
The Australian Security Intelligence Organisation, which Charles Spry was to inherit, was created by the Chifley Labour government at the outset of the Cold War. One of ASIO's first targets was a Russian journalist living a double life in Sydney's King's Cross.
And in 1949, a group of ASIO officers in the first very amateurish operation rented the flat above his and tried to plant a microphone in the ceiling of his flat.
Careful, you'll drill down to Moscow.
Unfortunately, they dislodged a piece of plaster, creating perhaps the first ASIO crisis.
ASIO suspected Fyodor Nosov of sending more than news stories back to Moscow. The challenge for its novice spies was to catch him in the act.
Сколько ты меня уже пилить-то можешь, а? Одно и то же.
Это кто кого должен оставить в покое?
Ты знаешь, как я тяжело работаю. Ты же знаешь об этом.
Не нервируй меня. У нас работничек нашелся.
Работает она. Подожди, а ты же убирала?
Недавно, в квартире.
Да я пыль вчера здесь вытирала. Ты что теперь еще пыль проверять за мной собрался?
Ага. Вот откуда.
A few weeks later, Robert Menzies' Liberal Party swept the Labour government from power. The following day, ASIO's espionage investigation took an unexpected turn when an influential Labour figure paid the Russian journalist a visit.
Oh, hello, my friend.
How are you?
Very good, very good.
Good.
Please come in. Please come in.
Oh, here we go, food.
Thank you, darling.
As I say, whatever the faults of communism doesn't nullify the faults of capitalism.
Oh, can I quote you, my friend?
If I were here, brother, you could quote me.
But I'm not here.
Oh, ну, на здоровье.
Alan Dalziel was president of the Christian Socialist movement, but he was also private secretary to the outgoing Labour minister who'd overseen the formation of ASIO, Dr. Herbert Evatt. And to have someone at Dalziel's level and access and influence going into Nossol's apartment must have sent shivers up their spines. Using surveillance and phone taps, ASIO began an intensive investigation to see if Dalziel was spying for the Soviet Union. An investigation that would breach the inner sanctum of the Labour Party. It was the beginning of a turbulent relationship between Labour and the spy organisation it had created. New Conservative Prime Minister Robert Menzies was highly suspicious of ASIO. He feared it wasn't up to the task of tackling the Soviet threat to Australia. Recently jailed communist Lance Sharkey had claimed Australian workers would welcome Soviet forces if they invaded the country. With the communists rallying outside of Parliament House, Menzies called on the head of military intelligence to take over the spy agency.
Prime Minister, Colonel Spry.
Colonel Spry, you came in the back way?
The front door. Our friend Sharkey wants to see the Soviet flag flying over this place.
And my people say that you're the man who can prevent that happening.
When I took over, I said to the Prime Minister I felt this was a national organisation. It was in the defence of us all.
The patriotic, fervently anti-communist Colonel Charles Spry was a fifth-generation soldier. During the Second World War, he had served with distinction in the tough Middle East and New Guinea campaigns. Spry took over ASIO convinced that Australia's national security was in jeopardy. America had recently stopped sharing top-secret information with Canberra and London, and Australia was to blame. In his first days, Spry was to be briefed by British intelligence agency MI5 and learn of a network of Australians spying for the Soviet Union.
5 minutes.
The very reason Britain had insisted on ASIO's creation.
Mr. Young.
Colonel Spry, please take a seat.
Oh, proceed.
During the war, and up until 1948, British and American intelligence intercepted encrypted cables being radioed to Moscow. Decrypted, many were found to have come from the Soviet embassy in Canberra. The cables contained the code names of about a dozen Australians spying for the Soviets, supplying political, diplomatic, scientific, and military documents.
The alleged spy network included leading communist Catherine Susanna Pritchard, a world-famous novelist. The cables suggested she'd accessed classified documents through her son, who worked for the Department of External Affairs. In fact, the department seemed to be a hub of espionage activity and included secretaries and diplomatic staff.
And this is the ringleader, Walter Seddon Clayton, a high-ranking operative in the Communist Party of Australia. He and his espionage network are responsible for the Americans downgrading their intelligence cooperation with Australia to the same status as Mexico and Brazil.
Have our people paid this Clayton a visit?
He's gone into hiding.
And the others?
We suggest you continue to investigate them, but with extreme care. We can't let the Soviets know we've cracked their codes.
The decoded Soviet embassy cables also exposed the journalist Nossov as the Soviet mastermind behind the spy network. During his 7 years in Australia, he'd supplied Moscow with classified material, including War Cabinet documents. But Asio's surveillance operations became so obvious, he limited his espionage activities. Senior officers blamed Deputy Director Bob Wake for the failures.
Sorry, hold up.
I'm told you're planning to search Nosov's flat.
That's right. A legal search.
And all his contacts will go to ground. The very people we are investigating.
Nosov's been eating resources for months. Constant surveillance by 2 officers in the flat living above. He never says anything. He never does anything. We're going nowhere here.
Mr. Wake had a dubious reputation. This break-in of his looked like an attempt to embarrass me up front. You have 2 choices. You either tender your resignation effective as of now. The other option, therefore, won't be required.
Within 6 months, Spry radically transformed ASIO. He moved its headquarters from Sydney to his hometown of Melbourne and recruited new officers from the military and state police forces. Spry was determined to convince Australia's allies that it could again be trusted with top-secret information. For its role in the espionage network, he declared war on the Communist Party of Australia and supported the Menzies government's attempt to outlaw the party by an Act of Parliament. But the ban was rejected by the High Court and at a referendum put to the Australian people. Spry's response was both daring and illegal. Raid Communist Party premises to search for compromising evidence.
They were breaking in, they were monitoring phones illegally, and communists were treated, in effect, as outlaws in their own country, even though the legal justification for that had been defeated by the Australian people.
This film is a record of persons attending the 18th National Congress of the Communist Party of Australia. John Hartley, who was a member of the Communist Party in America until his deportation in 1949.
ASIO perfected the art of surveillance using hidden cameras and secreted more than 40 undercover agents into Communist Party branches across the country.
They told me that there was some risk involved. I couldn't be caught, and if I was, unfortunately, that was the end of it. They didn't want to know about it. They would never admit to knowing me at all. So that was it. Sorry, mate, you had it.
Ronald Henry Brown of Queensland State Committee has been a party member since...
The policy given to me was a person who was a member of the Communist Party could not have access to classified information. Bang! That certainly limited the possibility of espionage.
The development in the early 1950s of an Anglo-Australian rocket project and British atomic weapons testing in South Australia were both testimony to Spry's success. ASIO's new security initiatives, including the vetting of local staff to weed out potential spies, restored Britain's faith in Australia.